Some people don't break down in obvious ways. They just get quieter, slower, and strangely tired after things everyone else calls normal. They leave a simple conversation feeling like they carry furniture. They smile on the drive home and sit in silence like their mind ran a marathon. And that exhaustion is hard to explain because nothing dramatic happened, yet something inside you still got used up. You might sleep a full night and still wake up feeling unfinished. Not exactly sad, not exactly anxious, just already mentally touched by the day. Sometimes the tiredness starts before anything even happens, like your system remembers life is coming and begins bracing early. You can look calm, capable, and completely fine. Meanwhile, your thoughts are already sorting tone, facial expressions, background noise, and tiny emotional shifts. That is the part most people never see. The outside of you is composed, but the inside is constantly processing. You notice who sounded slightly off. You notice who seemed disappointed, distant, tense, fake cheerful, or more fragile than usual. Even when you try not to, your attention keeps gathering data, and every piece of it lands somewhere in your body. So recovery takes longer than people expect, not because you are weak, but because your day does not end when the moment ends. A quick interaction stays open in your mind. Hours later, it is still being sorted, replayed, and emotionally filed. That is why some people feel exhausted after what looked like a small day. The day may have been short, but the internal activity was not. You might leave a grocery store feeling oddly depleted, not because shopping was hard, but because the lights, decisions, noise, and people all registered at once. You might answer a text and feel your chest tighten for no clear reason, because even tiny contact can wake up a whole chain of anticipation. You might spend time with people you genuinely like and still need hours alone afterward. That confuses a lot of sensitive people. They assume love should cancel out fatigue, but connection and stimulation are not the same thing. You can enjoy someone deeply and still feel drained by the effort of tracking them. Their mood, your words, the pace, the timing, the unspoken things. Some people are not only in the conversation, they are also noticing the temperature of it. They hear the sentence that was said. They also hear the sentence underneath it. They notice the pause after a joke. They notice the change in eye contact, the softer voice, the little crack in someone's energy. This kind of awareness sounds gentle from the outside. Inside, it can feel like carrying too many tabs open at once. Your brain is not just hearing life, it is scanning, comparing, predicting, and adjusting in real time. That constant adjustment creates a hidden workload. It is one reason recovery can feel strangely disproportionate to the event itself. You're not only responding to what happened, you are also responding to what you sensed, what you inferred, and what your body stored. A lot of people like this have a delayed reaction to overstimulation. They seem fine in the moment, then crash later. At dinner, they are attentive and engaged. Back home, they drop their keys, sit on the bed, and feel like someone unplugged them. The body often waits until safety to reveal the bill. When the social performance ends, the nervous system finally tells the truth. That truth can look like blank staring. It can look like needing darkness, loose clothes, silence, or nobody asking one more thing. Sometimes it looks like irritability that makes no sense. Not anger exactly, just a system that cannot take one more layer. This is why overstimulated people often confuse themselves. They think I was fine earlier, so why do I feel awful now? Because your mind was busy managing the moment. Your body postponed the cost until you were alone enough to feel it. And once you are alone, something else begins. The replay. You remember your wording from 3 hours ago. You wonder if your face changed at the wrong moment, or if your silence seemed rude. You revisit a tiny detail nobody else remembers, but your mind does, because unfinished social information sticks to it like static. At night, this gets louder. The house is quiet, but your inner world finally has room to speak. That is when old conversations line up in the dark. Not because you want drama, but because your system is still metabolizing human contact. For deeply aware people, silence is not always rest at first. Sometimes silence is when the backlog arrives. You lie in bed and feel your brain pulling files. A comment from noon, a look from yesterday, attention from last week. Then people wonder why sleep does not fully restore you, because rest is harder when your mind keeps doing late-night emotional bookkeeping. Some people live with this for years without having language for it. They just think they are too tired, too sensitive, or bad at coping. But the issue is often more specific than that. They have a system that notices more, holds more, and releases more slowly. That slow release matters, because recovery is not only about what you experience, but how long the experience stays active inside you. One person has a stressful meeting and moves on by lunch. Another carries the emotional residue into the evening without meaning to. One person chats at a party and sleeps fine. Another comes home wired, tired, and somehow still buzzing at midnight. Neither reaction is fake, but they are not happening of the same depth of processing. Some people process life close to the skin. Everything lands faster, deeper, and with less emotional distance. That can make you warm, perceptive, and trustworthy. It can also make ordinary days feel far less ordinary inside. You may notice this in the morning. Before coffee, before emails, before anyone speaks, there is already a low hum in you. It is not always fear. Sometimes it is just readiness without relief. Your system is scanning for demands before they arrive. And that kind of constant preparedness is tiring even when nothing goes wrong. Then the day begins adding layers. Notifications, errands, voices, deadlines, tone shifts, traffic, fluorescent light, background music, another decision, another reply. To someone else, those are small things. To a highly aware nervous system, they are not small when they pile up. The fatigue is cumulative. It is built from many subtle impacts, not one dramatic blow. That is why you can feel oddly depleted after a day that looked easy on paper. Paper never records the invisible effort. It does not record how often you monitored yourself. It does not record how many moods you adjusted around. It does not record how much energy went into staying even, especially when part of you is overstimulated the entire time. Many sensitive people become experts at looking unbothered. They learn how to keep their voice steady while their mind gets louder. They answer politely while feeling their system tighten. They remain agreeable while mentally asking for the room to quiet down. Over time, this creates a strange split. People see you're calm and assume you are naturally unshaken. But calm behavior is not always calm physiology. Sometimes it is just excellent self-management. And self-management is work. Constant inner restraint can be just as exhausting as open distress. That is why some people need recovery that looks excessive to others. They are not only recovering from events, but from the effort of containing themselves through them. A short visit can do it. A casual meeting can do it. Even a normal phone call can leave your mind crowded. Not because the call was bad, but because you stayed fully on the whole time. You listened closely, read between lines, chose your words carefully, and tracked the emotional temperature. That kind of presence costs energy. People often praise this trait without understanding its price. They call you thoughtful, mature, easy to talk to, emotionally intelligent. And maybe you are. But those strengths are not weightless. The same awareness that makes you perceptive can also make rest harder, because your attention does not shut off the minute the room gets quiet. You keep noticing, you keep processing, you keep carrying what other people dropped and forgot. Sometimes you even absorb emotions that were never yours to begin with. A tense room enters your body before you consciously name it. Someone else's irritation can sit in your chest. Someone else's sadness can flatten your energy for the rest of the afternoon. This does not mean you are fragile. It means your boundaries are not only emotional, but sensory and nervous system based. You can know something is not yours and still feel it lingering. Understanding does not always cancel impact. That is an important truth. Insight helps, but it does not instantly erase overstimulation. A lot of deeply aware people judge themselves for this. They think they should be able to bounce back faster because the event was minor. But your recovery time is not a moral failure. It is information about how much your system had to hold. And sometimes the hardest part is that the exhaustion is invisible. If you had a visible injury, you would not question your need for rest this much. But mental saturation leaves no bruise people can point to. So, you start doubting the reality of your own depletion. You call yourself lazy when you are overloaded. You call yourself antisocial when you are trying to regulate. You think you are pulling away from life. Sometimes you are simply trying to return to yourself. That return usually looks plain from the outside. A dim room, a closed door, a long shower, no messages, maybe just standing in the kitchen doing nothing. But inside, it is repair. It is your system slowly lowering the volume. This is why some people need silence the way others need conversation. Silence is not emptiness for them. It is where their scattered attention starts coming home. It is where their body stops defending itself from constant input. And still, even recovery can take time, because what overloaded you may have been subtle, layered and spread across the whole day. You are not resetting from one thing, you are unwinding from accumulation. That is also why quick advice often feels useless. Go out more, relax, stop overthinking, don't take things so personally. Those phrases miss the structure of the experience. This is not always about negativity, insecurity, or attitude. Sometimes it is about bandwidth. Sometimes your system is simply carrying more input than it can cleanly digest. That does not make you broken, but it does mean you have to respect the cost of your awareness. Awareness is beautiful in many ways. It lets you catch what others miss. It helps you read rooms, sense pain, notice beauty, and understand people with unusual precision. It gives your inner life depth. But depth without recovery turns heavy. Even a gift can become a strain when it never gets set down. That is the mature reframe. Not that your sensitivity is magical, and not that it is a curse. It is a real trait with a real cost. And life gets gentler when you stop pretending the cost is imaginary. You may need more transition time than other people. More quiet after noise, more space after closeness, more sleep after a crowded day. That does not mean you are behind in life. It means your system recovers honestly. And honesty matters here, because many exhausted people are not failing at life. They are living with an amount of inner processing nobody around them can see. They're carrying invisible labor with remarkable consistency. So if you've ever felt weak for needing longer to come back to yourself, look again. What if you are not weak at all? What if you've simply been measuring yourself by people who do not register life with the same volume? What if your tiredness has been accurate all along? There's a certain grief in realizing this late. You start seeing how often you push past your own limits just to seem normal. How often you stayed available after your mind was done. How often you called it overreacting when it was actually overload. But there's also relief in naming it, because once something has language, it stops feeling like a personal mystery. You begin to understand why coming home feels emotional, why your body exhales at the door like it was holding itself together outside. You begin to understand the late-night replay, the slow mornings, the need for pauses, the exhaustion after small things. And maybe most importantly, you stop treating your need for recovery like a character flaw. You start seeing it as a real response to a real amount of internal work. Not all tiredness comes from doing too little. Some of it comes from noticing too much for too long. Some of it comes from being the kind of person who feels the room, hears the undertone, catches the shift, and carries it home in silence. So if your exhaustion has always felt bigger than the story you know how to tell, that does not mean the story is false. It may mean the hidden part was the heaviest part. And if you need more recovery than you can easily explain, maybe that is not because you are too much. Maybe it is because your inner world has been carrying more than words ever showed.